Good morning, everybody. My name is Matt Bachman. I'm an attorney with the Guardian Ad Litem program out of Hillsborough County, which is Tampa, Circuit 13. I've been with the program for 9 years as an attorney the entire time. A little bit just about me, I didn't come by the law early in my life. I actually used to run call centers in Indiana and decided that I wanted to stop selling widgets and try and help some people out. So I went to law school, and on the day that the bar results came out, I got a phone call from the Guardian Ad Litem program and said, hey, if you pass the bar, we would like to interview you. So I was scared for two things, but yes, I was able to get that interview and have been with the program ever since. And then this is Jen.
And my name is Jennifer Layden. I'm a supervising attorney for the 12th Circuit, that is Bradenton, Sarasota, and Arcadia, DeSoto County. I have been with the program. January is going to be 14 years. He's not old enough to do anything late in life. I went to law school late in life, actually, later in life. I actually started out as a social worker. So I actually consider myself a social worker with a law degree. I did the type of work that the social workers for your CDC do. I was involved with families. I took calls. I investigated calls. But when I was back there, and I won't even tell you what decade that was, but when I was doing it, we did everything. This case manager was the investigator, was the service provider, not the service provider, but the one that actually got services in place. And then if our kids were adopted, we followed it all the way through. So I went to law school, and I actually had I went to law school to do this. This is the job I went to law school to come out and do. It took me about 6 years to get here, 9 years after law school to get here, just because of a lot of life stuff. But I love what I do. I'm frustrated by what I do, but most of the time I love what I do. So we don't have that many people here. So what I'd like to do, if you don't mind, just if we'll go through around the room, just tell us your name and what your position is. Are you a volunteer? Are you a lawyer? Are you with the CBC? Are you a case manager? And if you're a volunteer, do you have a team right now?
Susan Brenton, and I'm from Vero Beach, Florida, and I'm new to the program. I haven't gone through the training yet. I start on the 14th.
Cool. Well, welcome. Thank you. Thank you. We can't do our job without you guys. So.
I'm Janet Noguchi. I'm from St. Lucie County, and I've been doing a volunteer. I've been doing this for close to 7 years now.
Do you have a team?
I'm sorry?
Do you have a team on your caseload right now?
I do. I have a team who's about to be adopted, and I have a team who's about to age out that I'm not guardian for. I'm his educational surrogate. He already had a guardian. But I'm trying to help him figure out what the next steps will be.
I'm Kim Boyman, and I've been a guardian in St. Lucie County for 5 years. I'm also a foster parent. And I had a team. Right now I do not have a team, but I had a team, and that case closed last year with it being adopted by an aunt. And so she calls her Auntie Mama and Sister Cuz. She has a sister, which I think is cute. She was my very first case, and it just closed last year. So that was a 4+ year case for me. And she's 16 now, and boy, was that a tough first case to have. And I still stay in touch with her.
Good.
Even though it's closed. And we go Christmas shopping every year together, so it's about time to
Good.
work her.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
My name is Jamie Briggs. I'm a foster parent here in St. Lucie County, presenting the foster parent session next. We fostered a teen until she aged out and went off to college.
Well, good. Great. Get the right moves there, getting her off to college. So good.
My name is Christy Pitcher. I've been a guardian ad litem in Brevard County for about 4 years, and I was previously a caseworker for the Department of Children and Families as well. But I have 3 teams, and I know a lot has changed with the aging out process and all of that.
You're going to learn a lot today.
Yes, I'm excited.
A lot in a little bit of time.
Yes, in a little bit of time. Great.
My name is Ariana Stark. I'm guardian ad litem in Brevard County also. I've been a guardian for about 4 years. I'm closing out my case right now with baby, but I've been wanting to work with teens and older children over the last year.
So your next case will be team. Okay, we're working on that. Sir.
Good morning. My name is Bob Zeller. My wife and I, decided to go in the other room, which is we work together as a team. We just completed 1 year guardian, and we just in the last 2 weeks started a case with a 17-year-old girl and a 13-year-old boy. And the other 2 cases are 8-year-old and 8, 4, and 2.
you're gonna have your hands full.
Yeah, I want to ask you, you said you want a team. Do you have the idea, like, we have like a 14-year-old and a 7-year-old. Do you have an idea, you want a younger teen or an older teen? Because I'm sure they'll find you a case. I'm gonna go tell them now, when we're done. We have somewhere for you.
Do you? Are they in Brevard County because I don't want to drive down here? Yeah, you know, I'm open to anything. I worked in a rural area with a lot of teen moms for many years in Iowa, and so I would like to, you know, work with a teenage girl in particular.
I'm sure they ask you.
Good morning, my name is Kathy Carandozzi. I am a volunteer in Indian River County. I do have a 17-year-old turning 18 and pregnant, so I really would like to know what to do and guide her. So this is timely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
see what we can do.
All right, so first things first, you might have noticed that there's a camera in the room, so we are taping this for our for the website. So because of that, we're going to try and stay a little bit more on topic. If you have any questions that are kind of clarifying questions, please go ahead and ask us to raise your hand, and we'll probably repeat the questions that the camera can pick it up. If you have those kinds of questions that is like, in my case, or my child does, that's maybe more specific that we won't necessarily put on the video. So we're going to hang out afterwards and be able to answer any of your like case-specific kind of questions if we can. All right, because every county is a little bit different and every CBC is a little bit different. And with that, off we go. So you know who we are, and now we know who you are. So why are we even here? So this is a big part of this is trying to figure out what is different about this group of people. So we're going to be talking about today 3 different groups of kids, right? So we're going to talk about kids that are from the ages of 13 to 16. Then we're going to talk about the kids that are 16 to 18. And then we're going to talk about, lastly, the kids from 18 to 23 and how the foster care system can apply to them in each of those different sections. As we're going through, we'll talk about a little bit about introducing that group and who they are and why it's important to talk about them in that kind of ancillary group. Then we're going to talk about what the department, what the CBC, your social workers should be doing, your caseworkers, what should they be doing for the kids in that group. And then we'll talk about what you should be doing for those kids in that group. So that's kind of the layout of the land of how we're going to go through it, all right? So why is it important? Once kids, you know, when they're young and they're young and impressionable ones, you know, they kind of have a lot of similarities. You know, they get up, they get their breakfast, they go to school, they come home, they get their bath, and they go to bed. And they have sort of a routine. And for whatever reason, as we all know, when those hormones kick in, routines go out the window, and every child is absolutely different. And so it's important for us to sit and talk about these groups of kids, right? And what is different about them and how we are going to be different with them than we might be with an 8-year-old. And how, as a volunteer, we're going to talk about how your role is going to change from maybe advocate to mentor to adult friend. And how you can keep your role with these youth going on much further than just your role as a volunteer if you wish to do so. And we're going to give you some tips and tricks about that. We're going to talk about the benefits that are available for each population. That's something that I know is probably really important for you guys to find out what they are eligible for based on whether they age out, if they get a permanent guardianship after the age of 16, if they're adopted, all those kinds of things. Those things we're going to talk about all of that, and you'll be able to learn that. As I mentioned, we're going to help you to understand what the department is required to do statutorily, so by law, what the department has to do, so that if they're not doing it, you can call up your attorney and say, hey, we need to either go to court or we need to put some pressure on them because they're not doing what they have to do. We're going to talk about the best practices with social workers, and then we're going to talk about the best practices for y'all as guardians. So what issues, what kinds of things, just to start with youth, we start to see things that are much different. So education, it's not just going to elementary school. At this point, when they turn between the 13 and 23-year-old, you've got vocational schools, you've got middle school or high school, or you might have decide that they're going to do Florida virtual school. There's all different types of colleges and universities and those kinds of things. And so education now is splits. It's not just kind of staying on one track. So that's one of the reasons they're different. Issues facing our youth, we're going to start to see substance abuse and pregnancy. These are things that you don't usually see with your 8-year-olds or 7-year-olds. And so these are things that are so much different and issues that you're going to have to deal with on a regular basis. DJJ stands for Department of Juvenile Justice, so that's basically kind of criminal activities or things that are that they can be arrested for. You'll again start to see those start to pop up. Residential, starting to see if kids who might have severe mental health issues, severe substance abuse issues, or severe DJJ issues are no longer going to be able to be housed in our standard foster homes or in traditional foster homes. There might be group homes. We might start talking about mental health facilities where they are in a lockdown facility, or where they're committed to a DJJ program where they are sent somewhere to restore their competency, or in order to kind of learn about how to get back into mainstream society. And then being normal, and this is a really big thing. Kids that are in foster care automatically aren't what we consider normal because they're in a completely fake environment. I mean, they're living with strangers or living in a cottage somewhere with a bunch of kids who have parents who have problems they're trying to get their problems fixed. And so kids should still be allowed to be kids, and by doing that, it helps them to heal from their past trauma. So we're going to still try and work with them as volunteers and as mentors to talk to them about driving. I mean, if you guys remember when you first got your driver's license, what a thrilling thing that was, how empowering it was to you to be able to get behind the wheel and go on your own. Our kids don't generally get the ability to do that, and we've got some programs that could try and help that. Dating and sexuality, is it okay for a 17-year-old to go out on a date or not? Do we know the rules on who they can date and who they can't date and how old they're allowed to be and where they should go? And how can we make that normal? And really just starting to talk to them about participation in their own life, in their own permanency, and what do they want to do in the future. Maybe right now what they want isn't possible, but it could become possible by doing some steps, and we're going to talk about how you as a volunteer and then a mentor can help to make sure that these youth are engaged in their own lives and that they haven't checked out.
Those of you who are already have some teens, I'm not going to tell you anything new about relating to them. I'm positive of that. I think that the idea that from what we're trying just in this particular venue right now, we just want you to get the idea that adolescence is a transition. It is a transition from childhood where you depend on somebody for everything to adulthood where you're on your own and you're making all your own decisions. And adolescence, depending on the adolescence, can be very smooth, where it kind of goes right the way it's supposed to, where you get more decision making, you do better at decisions, you get more decisions, and you move on to making your decisions. Some of the teens don't go so well. Okay, and it's so just the idea of how to relate to a teen and making sure that when you're dealing with them, there's a handout I believe in your packet that's called Engaging Youth. Okay, and on with that. It talks about a lot of different things.
Not to interrupt, Jen, it's at the back of your slides. So behind your slides for this particular class, there are a couple of handouts that we will be referencing.
And the one that I'm referencing now is the first one, and it's called Engaging Youth, or Principles of Engaging of Adolescence, actually. And I think the most important one is the first one, meeting the youth where the youth is. The idea that one 17-year-old is not going to be the same. You said you had a 17-year-old who's pregnant. That 17-year-old girl is not the same as a 17-year-old girl who is not pregnant, might be doing really well in school. That 17-year-old might be doing great in school, being pregnant, top of her class, and then you have the drug addict, the one that wants to be in trouble all the time. They're not the same. So you have to meet the youth where they are. And I'm not saying you have to accept where they are, but you have to meet them where they are to try to help them make the decisions that they are doing. We talk about the guardian being a mentor and a significant adult. As a guardian ad litem, your role is to be an advocate. Your role is to be the eyes and the ears of the court, to be an advocate in court. As a child, as you have ages, that role changes a little bit. You want to be a role model. You want to be a mentor. You want to be that person that can say, hey, sit down and show them how to do a checkbook. Because some of the foster homes and some of and I don't mean any disrespect, but some of the foster homes and some of the group homes just aren't doing those types of things. They're housing the children, that's what they're doing. They're housing the teens. But as the guardian, you can do more for them than that. You can be that person that, okay, You want a job? All right, where do you want a job? What kind of job do you want? Go through that type of stuff with them. Okay, you want this job. You're going to get a job at Publix. How are you going to get there? What are your hours going to be? How's it going to work with school? You can be that person. And it's not somebody, it's a mentor. It's a significant adult in their life. It's more of a personal relationship. And being, I won't say being a buddy, because my mom used to tell me I'm not your friend, I'm your mom. And then as an adult, she's my friend. But when I was a kid, until I actually got out of college, my mom was like, I'm not your friend, I'm your mom. And that's kind of where you guys are, I think. You're not their friend right there, you're the role model, you're the person that you want them to look up to you. And as they grow, you want to see an age, they're going to be looking to you for those things. Am I doing this? Okay. See, how did you get to, this is a wonderful, wonderful partnership we have. I did one slide. And I give it back to him.
She does a lot more at the end. So we're going to start out now talking about that first group, right, that I was talking about, the 13 to 16-year-olds. So 13 to 16-year-olds, it varies very much by CBC and by circuit. But there are still some statutory regulations that they're supposed to be following. So it's kind of, we say it's an ad hoc or informal training. So at the age of 13, between 13 and 16, the system of care as it is, so that includes the guardian ad litem, the foster parent, the caseworker, are supposed to try and help the youth to learn some basic life skills. So what is that? Back in my day, we called those chores. So the foster parent might say, hey, can you do a load of laundry? So you're teaching them kind of how to do laundry. If they're in a group home, they might go on an outing in my neck of the woods to Busch Gardens. They might be given, $20 and say, okay, here's $20 for your day, and they have to figure out how they want to use it. They might have to buy themselves food if they're hungry, instead of buying, a stuffed animal for someone. It's basic life lessons that they're learning along the way while they're in care. It's ad hoc. It's not usually regularly scheduled. It's not everyone come in. We're going to learn how to use a checkbook today, although that would be nice. But we listed some here. So what is a bank account, money management, grocery shopping, doing laundry, basic hygiene, grocery shopping. I've got some youth, sometimes the foster parents will say, hey, can you just go down to the corner store, pick up eggs, milk, and something for yourself, and give them, money and have them come home. And that's just, basic stuff that as kids, our parents probably taught us, or we learned from our community. Well, the foster kids, foster youth now, that are in out-of-home care, need that same kind of community to help to teach them, and that's all of us, okay? And everyone within the system of care. Again, these are ordinary youth life outings. So now we're going to talk, what should the social workers be doing? Well, there may be an independent living worker assigned. So IL stands for independent living. It's not required, and it's definitely circuit by circuit. So this would be a second caseworker that is dedicated, or not dedicated, but that picks up your case, picks up your youth, and tries to ensure that some of these life skills are happening. I will tell you that in my circuit, we don't have those.
We don't have them in mind either.
So I'm not sure if you have them here, that's great, that's fantastic. They're definitely a unique resource, a different resource than the caseworker. The case manager then, CM case manager, completes their JRSSR and must include a statement in there about what the caregiver is doing in order to ensure that life skills are being done. And it's generally just a two-sentence thing that says the case or the caregiver has helped the youth start to learn showering, shaving, and how to do grocery shopping. Yes?
What is JRSSR?
Guys, thank you for asking. JRSSR stands for Judicial Review and Social Study Report. So that is that big packet, when you go to your judicial review hearings, that's that big packet that comes in from the caseworker that is really usually sometimes hard to read. It has a lot of really good information in there if you know how to use it, and if you don't, ask your PAM. But so that's the thing that this is what they're statutorily required to file with the court. So they have to file the JRSSR before every JR hearing.
We just call them JRs.
Oh, that's a JR. Again, social work practice, as I mentioned, fostering group home parents are responsible to ensure that they learn and master independent living skills. And the case manager is supposed to know what they're learning. So they're not going to be doing the teaching, they're just supposed to know, okay? So then now what is your role? You need to ensure that someone, and it might be yourself, but someone is helping to provide these basic skills. So you're going to maybe even take them out shopping, or you might go ahead and have them over and teach them, go somewhere and have a cooking class, and so that they know that this is a pot and this is what a pot does. It's not a kettle. And so you want to try and just find out what they are doing. Also at this time, education, as I mentioned, is going to start to play a larger role or a different role in the youth from 13 to 16. So you want to make sure if you haven't been as engaged in their education or in their school, this is where you're going to want to kind of get more engaged. So you're going to want to talk to their guidance counselor. You're going to want to talk to your youth, especially 13 to 16, and say, hey, what are you thinking about for your education? At the age of 16 in Florida, youth can decide that they can drop out of school, and there's nothing that they can do about it. So we want to plan for that. If they plan on, at the age of 16, not continuing a traditional education, let's look at what other educational opportunities outside of a traditional education there might be. So you want to really plug in with your educational needs. This is something that we've talked about.
Just a second.
Yep.
I think being an educational surrogate is an amazing, amazing, amazing thing. So if you have the ability and you have the training in your school systems to be an educational surrogate, please consider doing it, because it's not just for teens for educational surrogates. We have a lot of younger children who have IEPs, who are on 504 plans, which is, I guess, one step down from an IEP. So we have a lot of kids that their parents just simply aren't active or actively involved in their education. So sorry I didn't interrupt this. I'm just doing a plug for educational surrogates because it is a wonderful opportunity for you. You can be the guardian and the educational surrogate for your same child. Well, I'm just going to suggest that you ask your local agency, because I'm sure they'll have a way of working with the school system to get that in. Because it's a training.
Yeah, and every county school board is different as to what sort of training they require. Right. So you'll have to ask.
So I'm just going to do a plug for that. Just talk to your local folks, your CAM, and ask, because they think it's a wonderful thing that we can do for our kids.
Every few months, the circuit has a training right in the office. They have somebody from the school board who comes.
Perfect.
So just look for those emails.
And we do have, in the 19th circuit, we do have multiple people that are, so it's awesome just to get everybody on the tag. But definitely, like she said, talk to your CAM if you're interested, and we have everything right there for you.
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Oh, no worries. Another thing that you might consider, this is a very personal decision that we talk about, but now guardians can become transportation approved. So you can get approved to transport your youth by yourself to various activities. Every circuit has their own paperwork. It's pretty much the same from circuit to circuit, but so talk to your CAMs if you want to do that. But it's a great way for you to be able to pick up your youth either after school or on a weekend and go and do something that they might not have the opportunity to do. This is that normalization, and also that way that you can kind of start to impress upon them. This is, I hate to say it, but it's kind of like, this is what people outside of the system look like and do. People go and sit down and have lunch at a restaurant. They don't just go to McDonald's and do something like that, which lots of people do, and I love my McDonald's. But there's things, they go to the park, and they walk around. They might go to a free concert or an orchestra thing. I had a family that are a bunch of volunteers take a bunch of youth over to a concert in a park, and they was just floored that this even exists. So consider becoming transportation approved. The next one I say, respect and facilitate the youth's cultural connection. So if you have a youth that is Hispanic, maybe find out what's going on for Hispanic Month, National Hispanic Month, and take them to do something like that. If you have an African American, for Black History Month, look at some cultural things that you can also help them to maintain that cultural connection. And lastly, you're still going to submit your JR reports to the court, but add a line in there, down in the other, we used to have something specific that said independent living, but now under the other, put in a tag about either what you've done to help, what you think is going on, what you think is not going on for their independent living in this section, and how they can kind of, you can bring to the court's attention that there's some normalcy that they need or that they are missing.
Okay. And just go on the normalcy issue and on that for reports. In the 12th Circuit, we've added, like, we have a section we call observation of youth. We just kind of slash normalcy. So the guardians will throw in there, in that section, things that are happening for the youth, for their normalcy issues. So this is a population that I was going to say I'm close to, but I'm like way far away from in terms of age. But I think that this is an age group that worries me the most in our system, because it's the age group that tends to get lost. Because we think that, okay, they're 16 to 18, you know, they're going to decide what they want to do. They're going to be this, they're going to be that, and you have a picture of what the teens are. But I have seen so many. I've been to, I don't know, if you haven't been to the summit, have you seen some of those, what are the kids called?
Youth Shine.
Youth Shine. These kids that have gone through the system who have flourished, we can try to make that happen for most of our teens. Now I'm going to get off my soapbox and come back to this. But one of the ways to do that is to make sure they have a transitional plan. I don't know whether you've ever seen one. I tell you what, for a long time I didn't know what this was, because we never saw one, even though it was statutorily required. But it's a transition plan. We would get a 6-page thing that could be John's, it could be Sarah's, it could be Bob's, it could be the 16-year-olds, it could be the 18-year-olds, it didn't matter. It was such a cookie-cutter form. The transition plan is supposed to be unique to the child. I should be able to pick up a transition plan. If I have a teen, and you have a teen, you should be able to not know whose that plan is and read the body of it and know that's for your kid. Because it should be that unique about, and knowing, making sure. What it's basically, that is during the 6 months after the child reaches 17, okay? So 16 to 18, we're not going to focus on 16 too much. We're really going into the age of 17. Most of the statutory requirements are focused on going into 17 so that we can get the child, and I keep saying child, and I have to change that, the youth, because they're not a child anymore. And if you call a teen a child, they'll tell you I'm not a child anymore. So I got to be careful of that. So the idea is they have to have a plan, and it's supposed to be a meeting. And oh my goodness, the youth should be there. I don't know about your CPC, they hold a lot of meetings and staffings without the team. So this one at least, they got to be there because they have to have input into this. It has to be at a time and place that they can be. So it can't be in the middle of their algebra test. It can't be in the middle of, if their favorite class is PE, it can't be in the middle of PE. It has to be at a time and place that's convenient for them, time and place that's convenient for anyone that the youth wants to attend. Because anyone the youth wants there gets to be there. Because it's their plan. It's his or her plan. If the child is leaving care prior to when they turn 18, they're not going to stay in extended foster care. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. But if they're not staying in extended foster care, the transition plan has to be approved by the court prior to the child's youth turning 18, so that everybody's on the same page. This is what's going to happen when you're 18. So we just want to, basically the idea is you want the transition plan to cover everything. Education, job, do they have a bank account? When can they get a bank account? What are we looking at in terms of driving? When are we going to get them, when are they going to take driver's ed? So when you're looking at that, I'm going to go ahead to the next one. What did I do? Okay. We're going to look at some of these things. Okay, the social work best practice in terms of for this age group. There's similar reporting requirements for the case manager and caregiver. They're supposed to be reporting on what types of things are they're doing to help the child become independently, live independently. It's going to continue the same things as Matt was talking about. They're a little more ad hoc about teaching them how to keep a checkbook. Open an account for them. Yet at 17, there's a statute that allows it to get a court order that allows the child to actually sign to open a bank account, sign for a lease, sign for utilities. Is there something else? Am I missing one? I thought there were 4 things. I thought it was a bank account, lease, and utilities, so that they can actually plan for their future. I know, granted, if a child is in their home with their insurance. There you go. I think that what we have when teens have, I don't know, when I was growing up and I had my parents, I mean, they prepared me for these things. They helped me get the things that I need. I didn't have to sign for my own insurance at 17. I didn't have to sign for my own bank account because my parents did it. But with our youth, they need to be able to do these things, and be able to get ready to do these. So 17, if you have a 17-year-old and you don't have it's called an order that removes the disability of non-age. If you don't have that for your teen, talk to your CAM and talk to your lawyer to get that for your 17-year-old. It's called the removal of disability of non-age.
I think it's coming up in a future slide.
Is it?
Yeah.
Did I jump ahead?
No, it's okay. That way it's written down for them already.
Okay. Anyway, so time of the best practice, the transition workers' responsibilities are to educate the youth regarding APA benefits. Does everybody know what APA is? It's another planned permanent living arrangement. At this point in the statute, it really replaced long-term foster care, but it is specifically designed for teens that are going to be in care and from 16 to 18. And it's to help them age out of the system the best it possibly can. Because there's a lot of studies out there that show that the greatest increase in homeless population are kids, 18-year-olds aging out of the system. So we don't want that to happen, so we want to do these things. The plan, okay. So then they have to educate the youth, they have to attend court hearings, they schedule and participate in a meeting the first 6 months after the youth's 17th birthday, and review and update the transition plan as needed while the youth remains in foster care. Okay, we have a teen, 17-year-old, got great plans. We have a transition plan for this young woman to go to school. She's gonna graduate. She's gonna graduate on time, and she's applied and she's got some acceptances. She's gonna go to college. She's gonna go to an in-state college, so that's gonna be funded. She gets pregnant. She wants to keep the baby. Her transition plan needs to change. So there needs to be another meeting, and everybody needs to get together and try to work out. Can this plan still go forward this way? And if she does, what's she going to do about daycare for her child? All those things, those things. That's all about moving this youth from being a teen to being a young adult. Okay. All right. This is a big one. This is a big one because, as Matt said, it's been a long time, but when I was 16, New Jersey, you couldn't get a driver's permit until you were 16. You can get your license until you're 17. I think in Florida it's earlier. But when I was 16 and I was getting I got my permit, it was one of the most exciting things in the world for me. And when I turned 17, I got my driver's license. I was one of the older folks in my class. So I had my car. I mean, I had a car, I had my license, way before most everybody else in my class. So it was very cool. A lot of our teens don't get that. And for a long time, it wasn't allowed. For a long time, there was nobody that would sign for them. But now that the law has been changed, Senator Dieter made a significant, set some significant legislation, put it through, so they can get a license. They can get signed up for driver's education. There is a fund to help support them to the insurance. So I don't know all the details on how you guys do it in your area, but if you have a teen that's coming up on that age, you should be working with your CAM and with the case manager and with the child's caregiver to try to get that all in place. What do you have to do to get signed up for drivers? Because they have to take driver's education before they can get their permit, I think. Yep. So the child's not gonna, if the child's talking about it or the youth is talking about it at 15, okay, well, whatever time we can do this, let's put it in motion. What do we have to do to get this to happen? It's a big deal. And I will tell you, it goes a long way for making the youth feel normal, not so much just in foster care, a foster kid. Okay?
And just one quick thing off of that. Really, the Keys to Independence, which is what this is called, was really kind of championed by the Guardian Ad Litem program because we wanted kids to have, or really pushed the Senator Dieter to have this normalcy and to find a way. And we were able to find the funds that can not only pay for the ability to get the permit, but also pay for insurance. It doesn't pay for a car. We'll pay for those two things. Right now, it only relates to kids that are in foster care. So if kids are in relative care, it does not relate to them. However, legislation is being prepared this year that hopefully should go through without a hitch that will make it so that all kids that are in out-of-home care.
Right. And I do think that the idea is the out-of-home care and under the protective supervision of the department. I mean, really, it doesn't, to me, it shouldn't, and I don't, and obviously to the program, because we're pushing it at a statewide level, is the idea that any child that is away from their parents, even if they're with an aunt or a grandmother, they're not in their normal living situation, and they are out of home, so they should be included. So that a lot of things are moving to try to get those included as well. So There are some special requirements for teens that are 17 years old. The first the JR after the child's 17th birthday has to be within the first 90 days after that. So if you have a JR and you have a child's birthday is in October, you have a JR in September, you're going to have another one in either December or early January because you have to have one within 90 days. And it's the same requirements. Similar requirements of doing the judicial review report. Case manager has to do that. We should do a report as well. And we should be talking about addressing the permanency plan and options for the child. It should obtain an order. This is what I was talking about, the order of removal of non-age, the disability of non-age, bank accounts, utilities, rent, and car insurance. And then you have to have it every 90 days. So basically every 3 months, you have one at 17 1/3, 17 1/2, 17 3/4, and an 8, right before 18. So you want to have one right before the 18th birthday because you want to know what's going to happen. Because the youth has a lot of options. And if the child's aging out, you have to have a very specific plan to make sure that that child's just not getting kicked out of the foster home, kicked out of the group home. We had a child who was in an APD home, but didn't, we were trying to get them into an APD home, and he aged out before we were able to get him into an APD home. And so now we're trying to help him as a young adult because he stayed in extended foster care. We're still trying to get him in an APD home. So just have a plan for what's going to happen.
Can you clarify for me
Sure.
what an APD home is?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's a agency for persons with disabilities. With youth, we have a whole training on dealing with youth that have disabilities. But you still, with any teen, you have to know what that teen needs, where that teen's going to go when they turn 18, and what their plans are. So even though there's some specialty issues with children or teens with disabilities, it's the same concept. You need to be prepared for that. So the guardian's role is to be a mentor, be that role model. I think we have a lot of great foster homes in our area. We have some not so good ones, but we have some great ones, and they're role models. They're the people that are being the parent. They're absolutely being a parent. You know, I don't know how Matt said something earlier. It's like you have to open your heart and close it at the same time. You have to keep it open but keep it closed, and somehow. I don't know how you guys do that. I seriously don't know how you do it. I think it's amazing. Between volunteers and foster parents, you're the most amazing people in the world, to me, for what you do and how you open your heart to these youth. But anyway, the idea is to be a mentor, be that role model. Show them see, this is why I can never be a mentor, because this next sentence. Show them what a normal adult and a healthy adult looks like. But that's the idea, is just, you're going out to eat. I go, and every once in a while you go somewhere, and it amazes me that some teenagers do not know how to make change. Counting, they don't know how to make change because they just plug in the amount. Your bill is $19.60. They don't know how they need a quarter, a dime, and a nickel. Okay, I didn't need to think about that. But this is something I learned as a teen, and this is what you need. Okay? But the idea is, be that mentor, be that person. Make sure that there's a transition worker assigned. If you have a 16 to 18-year-old who does not have a transition worker assigned, you need to be talking to your CAM and the case manager, the primary case manager, to find out how to get that to happen. Attend all the meetings and the court hearings. Ensure the youth understands their options upon turning 18 and assist them in the decision-making process, and help them prepare his or her transition plan. Focus on activities with outcomes. Okay, I actually did mentor some young men. They were brothers, and I got them when they were 9 and 10, and I stayed with them until they were 17 and 18. And then they both got adopted by their an aunt. So I don't lose touch. Freddie still calls me every once in a while just to say hey. But Kobe was like this big, and he never got much bigger. He got like this big when he was 17, and he wanted to be an NBA basketball star. Okay. Yeah, that's not so much. Not so much. And he never played basketball. So it's not so much he was just short, he just never played basketball either. So when I was working with him, it's like, okay, well, what about you played intramural sports? And so we got him involved in some intramural sports, and he really enjoyed that. He really liked football. Then he wanted to be a professional football player. So, but what I'm talking about is just look at reality and help him see, hey, you want to do that? Here's what you got to do. But first you got to be able to live somewhere and pay your bills. and this is what a budget looks like. So make sure that they're looking at some realistic
We can go
stuff.
back for just a second.
I can go back.
I want to make 2 points, maybe 3 points. First of all, right here, at the age of between 17 and 18, and even 16 to 18, those of you who have had youth in this area, again, they're not typical. They are staying out late, they're breaking curfew, they are on the run sometimes, they are meeting with friends that they probably shouldn't be meeting with. And so a lot of times the caseworkers are in crisis mode the whole time. They're filling out incident reports, they're filling out runaway reports, they're filling out all sorts of reports, and they're they're going and hanging up signs to try and find these kids. They're not thinking about permanency, and they're not thinking about transition. They're thinking about where is he today? Oh, he just broke through another placement, broke down another one. This is his 3rd placement for this month. I have no more placements for him. Now I have to drive him to the other coast because that's the only place that they can tell me where I can put him. So, there's all of that is going through the caseworker's head. And that's a lot. I don't know that I could ever be a caseworker because of that, because you're in crisis mode, especially with this age group. But because of that, they're not thinking about transition, and you have to be the one that really pushes that. Because those kids, no matter what crisis they're in today, are going to age out. And we need to continue to work and make sure that they have a plan as to what's going to happen. And that plan might change daily based on the crisis, but we really need, this group, us volunteers, really need to work hard at making sure that we have a transition plan and that it's meaningful. So you're going to have to be that little squeaky wheel when it comes to the department and making sure that they will forget to have transition meetings. They will completely forget to have transition meetings. Or they will have them and they won't tell you. Or they will have them and they tell you, but they won't have the youth there. And you need to say, this is a great meeting. We're going to have another one next week and we're going to have the youth here. And you've got to force that. You have to demand that. And if they push back hard enough to where you aren't able to do that, then you're going to talk to your CAM and your attorney and run it up the ladder, because I guarantee you, 1, it's statutorily required, and 2, every judge that deals with this population wants there to be a transition plan, because they don't want to be the ones who sent a kid out into the world with nothing, but the clothes on his back.
And to add to that, you had that teen with a pregnancy, a pregnant teenager, where, just because a teen is in foster care and gets pregnant does not mean her child, when born, is a dependent child and should be removed from that parent. We need to be working on plans, and I don't know what services are available in your local area, but during that pregnancy, you need to be working on plans with the case manager, with the youth, finding a placement for this child where that youth can stay with their baby. Because quite honestly, it doesn't mean, we have some knee-jerk reactions in our circuit a couple of times where just because the youth is a foster child does not mean their child needs to be removed from them and be placed in foster care. It doesn't have to happen. They could be the best mom in the world if they had the right services in place for them. So it's a matter of finding those services and making sure they're set up. Okay.
We were going to keep you a little bit late because we always do this, but I've got one more thing. Focus on activities with outcomes. So this is where you can be really, really helpful. So right now, I think I know where I'm going to be in the next 3 years or 5 years. Hopefully, I kind of have that figured out. Kids at this age, they have no idea where they're going to be tomorrow, okay? And so what we need to do as mentors is to try and solve little problems for them so that they can start to see what their world is going to look like. So we want to look at, when we talk about finite income, we want to say, so today, you're talking about going to college as a youth. Today, I'm going to sit down with you and fill out the FAFSA, which is the federal aid money. This is how you can get money. I'm going to sit down with you, we are going to finish it and get it done. So suddenly that is kind of off their plate. They might not have even known that they needed to do that, but that's something finite that you can do. Today we are going to go and apply for 3 jobs, and I'm going to take you to 3 different places and we're going to apply for jobs, okay? And so you can do little things, like little tasks that in the mind of the youth is something that they couldn't even conceptualize how to get started. They don't know how to fill out a FAFSA. They don't know what those questions even mean sometimes. They don't know how to go about getting a job or getting an application. They don't know, what health insurance is. And health insurance is not my cup of tea either. But securing housing, if you're at that point, take them and say, these are 4 apartment complexes. that you probably will be able to afford if we have this, this, and this in place. Let's go look and see if you like any of them, if you don't like them, just so they can start to conceptualize in their mind. They have now a picture of where they're going to be when they get to that age out point. So look at the little things that you can do that are going to be big for them.
Oh, we could go on with that
Yeah.
list. I mean, the idea
Off
of
myself.
going to taking a youth who's not sure maybe what they might want to do as an adult is giving them the opportunity to go see other things. Go see a chef. Go to a photography studio and talk to a photographer. Go to an auto mechanic store and see how that works and see if that's something, you know, give them those options. I had a guardian who actually drove around the state and stopped at almost every state college because they weren't sure what school they wanted to go to, but they knew they wanted to go to college. So she took her youth and they visited almost every college that was possible so that they could see, well, this is the area. And they did that. They drove around. These are the dorms. This is where you might live and those types of things. So
We can go on
Kelly's
forever,
back
but
there.
Kelly's back.
Kelly's
Nice.
back there, so we need to move on.
You go.
So, okay, so as you know, I think all of you probably know this, but we have what's called extended foster care at this point. We do have children, youth, and young adults at this point can stay in the system. They can choose, but they have to make that choice because at 18, they're adults. They can make those decisions. They can make the decision to stay in what's it called, extended foster care. And then there's another, this handout, I love this handout. That's the second handout. Because it's permanency at a glance, and it really does lay out the different options, and what those different options are, and what they require. But what we have, programs and services, they have the tuition waiver, Medicaid, extended foster care, post-secondary support services with PESS, AFTERCARE, and Road to Independence. Now, Road to Independence is phasing out. I think some of you have been in Guardians for a while, had youth before they went into Road to Independence. When the new, when PESS came about, Road to Independence, basically any youth that was in it could finish it. But once youth left it, if they came back, they had to come back into the new system, or if they left it, then they were gone. But if you stayed in it, they would finish it. I think it's like 2017.
Yeah, I think
finished.
they have one more year. So
One
really,
year?
forget we said Road to Independence.
Okay.
You didn't hear Road to Independence.
Okay, I didn't say that.
That's all right.
Extended foster care. I do want you to be aware of it because there are some youth that
Yes.
that are still in it. We have a couple in ours, and it's a little bit different. But if you have that, it's so unique right now. Just talk to your camp. All right, extended foster care. It allows the youth to remain in foster care until their 21st birthday, and it extends court jurisdiction. I like it when it extends court jurisdiction simply because then we get to go to court and say they're not doing their job. This is what they're not offering much. Matt and I are big on the idea that if you have a problem and the case manager's not doing it, you take it to your camp, you take it to your lawyer, because that's our job. Our job as an advocacy team is to make sure that child is getting everything. If our part of it is to bring it to court's attention, but continues to jurisdiction to be eligible. They have to be in a licensed foster care on their 18th birthday, and then the next ones are ands, but the next ones are ors. So this one you always have to have the first one, and then one of these other ones, or they're working at least 80 hours per month, or in high school, GED, college, etc., or participating in a job skill program, or unable to participate due to a identified disability. So you have a youth, like I have, the young man that we're helping, he does not have to do any of those things, and he's still in extended foster care because he has an identified disability. The benefits, there's living expenses, like for food and transportation, there's an allowance for that. There's a place to live, and the statute says supervised living environment. It can be a foster home, a group home, apartment, it can be a dorm. And an apartment, okay, it's not really supervised in the sense of somebody's there and they're watching them, but they need to know where that apartment is. If they're going to share it with other people, they need to be aware of who those other people are. So in that sense, and the case manager can go visit. So in that sense, it's supervised. And a dorm or something similar like that.
Extended foster care is relatively new for those of us who have been around forever. And so the supervised living environment is kind of still figuring it out. Each CBC and the department are kind of still trying to figure out how supervised does the living environment need to be? Does it need to be, you know, eyes on and there's like a house mom, or can they be living in a dorm facility with other adults who just happen to all know each other? So it depends CBC by CBC.
I need clarification. The previous slide said that first one and blah, 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 blah.
And one of those things.
Right, so the first one says you have to be in a licensed foster
Oh,
care.
no. You had to be in licensed foster, to be eligible for extended foster care, you had to be in licensed foster care when you turn 18.
Okay,
And
so
licensed-
18 and 2 months later, you go
You can be
into
in an
a
apartment or you can be in a dorm.
Still goes on.
Yes, but on your 18th birthday, you have to have been in licensed foster care. The reason that is as Matt was saying earlier, that there are some kids that are in relative care that are not entitled to this benefit when they turn 18. They might be entitled, there are other benefits they're entitled to if they have not been adopted or it's not a permanent guardianship. There's still other benefits they're entitled to, but they're not in foster care. Just think about it. If you're not in foster care before your 18th birthday, you're not going to get it after. So, and then you have post-secondary support and services. PESS, eligibility. You turned 18 while residing in a licensed care and have spent a total of 6 months in licensed out-of-home care before turning 18. So you have to be 18 you have to be in care when you turn 18. You had to have been there from your at least 17 and a half. You had to have been there 6 months, a total of 6 months before turning 18.
Is there any chance that would change for children who come in after 17 and a half, or they're just out of luck?
It would be wonderful if it is changed, but I would, given the money
history, well, the money and even the history, that 6 month period has been in the statute
for a
for
long time.
decades. So I don't know that that's going to change.
And we have guardians who, quite frankly, we annoy our CBC. We had one guardian because they didn't want a child to move to a relative for 2 months, because that 2 months was important for getting the benefits after. They could move to the relative later, but they needed that 2 months, and the CBC was so upset with us, and we won, because it was in the best interest of the child, and a modification of placement is about best interest, so the court agreed with us, but that is the idea, it's an issue of money, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's an issue of funding. So, okay, so then, or, to be eligible, these are all, the first two are ORs, and they have to earn a standard high school diploma or its equivalent. The second one was they were adopted after the age of 16 from foster care or placed with a permanent guardian after spending 6 months within 12 months immediately preceding the adoption or the placement. Okay, so these services are open to more youth than extended foster care, because you have been adopted, you can have been with a relative at some point.
So we're going to keep you for 5 minutes after 11. I know
Okay.
11 we're supposed to be done, but go
I
ahead.
just have a question
Yep.
on the last one. And standard high school diploma or its equivalent, does that mean GED?
Yes.
Yes, and I do think there's one other one. What is that other one?
There was a special certificate.
Yeah, I think it is. Does that?
It does, but most times kids who have a special certificate had an educational issue where they're probably not going to go on to college. So they won't necessarily.
So they won't necessarily use that.
Because when you get PESS,
This is what you get. For ages 18 to 23, you get a monthly stipend, and right now that's if you or while you're enrolled in college, university, or vocational school. Please remember that. Not all our kids are college, classroom, academic types of kids. Their vocations are good. There's a lot of vocations. So if they want to go to a dental hygienist school, they want to go to an auto mechanics, they want to go to CNA, those types of things are totally appropriate, and they can get benefits if they do that for at least 9 hours a semester. They can be used in conjunction with extended foster care, but again, they have to live in an approved place. As long as they're living in an approved place, they can get this benefit as well. And they can return to voluntary leave and fail to meet it. Okay, so if at any point they drop out of school in between that age group, and then they're, okay, at 19, I am done with you people. I'm done, I'm leaving. I don't want to do this anymore. Goes out for a year, age of 20 and a half, decides, oh my goodness, I need an education, I need to go back they can come back. Okay, so at any point in there, they can leave and come back. Whether they voluntarily leave or if even if the CBC says you're done, you're not in the system anymore because you're not going 9 hours a semester. So, aftercare services are, it's exactly, the second one is perfect, a perfect statement. It's a bridge between foster care and independent living when the youth is not receiving extended foster care or PESS. They're temporary, think about it as temporary aid. I don't, but she's called aid to families. For families, it's just really a temporary, it's an attempt to get them through a tough situation, and it can help them with all those types of things. Go ahead, you were going to say
I was just
something.
going to say, it's for the kids who say, I don't want to live in a supervised living placement, so I can't do extended foster care, and I'm only 2 months away from my GED, so then I can get PESS. So for those 2 months, they might have aftercare. You know, those kinds of are the kids that we're kind of looking at. And it pays its temporary emergency services form.
And we'll go out. Your role, this is the biggest, your role in doing it is to continue as the gal only if the youth wants. You have to realize, we all realize that once this young person turns 18, they are an adult and they get to make decisions that sometimes we're not going to like, but they actually get to make them because they're an adult. But if they want, then we will stay involved. If they want to stay in extended foster care, but they say, I don't need the guardian anymore, then we'll discharge. Okay? But at that point, I'm hoping that you all develop a mentor relationship with your youth, and it's going to, even if they don't want the program, then they'll at least have you as a support system. If we stay involved, we're going to do the monthly contact, we're going to do the JR reports and attend court, and we're going to make sure that the CBC is providing the services that they're entitled to. If you're being a mentor and you be a significant adult in their life.
And I guess these are some just points that we wanted to bring out. It's not anything that we necessarily need to discuss at length, but it's just remember that you're moving from mentor to a significant adult, and these are some ways that you can do it. And know that you can have significant and respectful disagreements. These youth are going to make mistakes, and you're going to be there to say, okay, we made that mistake, so let's figure out how we can help to make it better for you, or let's see what did we learn from that, and so we move on. We're not there as a judging, we're not there to make them feel bad because they're all going to make mistakes, especially seeing from where they came from, but we're going to be there to say, okay, what did we learn from this, and now we're going to move forward. And that's kind of the difference between with a mentor and a significant adult.
It's the idea of saying to them, I'm not going to judge you, but I'm going to be there for you. And if you make a mistake, the best example I can give is a youth that goes out and gets drunk and is in a situation and needs help. I want my youth to be able to feel trust enough in me that they're going to call me to come get them so they don't put themselves in a more dangerous situation. I'm not going to judge them in that moment. We're not going to have a discussion in that moment. I'm going to go pick them up. I'm going to take them home, make sure they're safe. Next day, day after, we're having a chat. But that's the type of mentor significant adult relationship we're talking about, is being there, being present, being that person they trust and that they'll come to when they need help. And that we have one of the ladies that I do Fostering Futures with, she has a youth that still 20 years later still touches base with her, and they have a relationship. So
this you can read on your own. This is when they discharge us, and we kind of already talked about that. We can go stay in your life as long as they'll let us.
And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, guys, just to reflect on your schedule real quickly, we have about a 5-minute break, and then the ins and outs of foster care will be from foster parents will be in this room. Mock trial will be right next door. My name is Nicole if you have any questions, okay? Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
And we'll be here until...
Yeah, I'm hanging
They
until
kick
the
us out.
foster parents kick us out.